I sold my software company for $8 million. After 35 years of marriage, I rushed home to share the news with my wife. But when I walked through the front door, I heard sounds coming from our bedroom that made my blood run cold. And all I could do was stand there, listening, because what I heard next would change everything. My name is Harold Mitchell. I'm 63 years old, and this is the story of how I lost my wife, but found my dignity. Let me take you back to the beginning. I started my small software company in Portland, Oregon, back in 1989. It was just me and a dream, working out of my garage while my wife handled the books. We were young, ambitious, and madly in love. At least, I thought we were. Patricia was 28 when we married, beautiful with auburn hair and a smile that could light up any room. I was 28 too, a nerdy engineer with thick glasses and bigger dreams. For 35 years, I poured my heart and soul into that company. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, and countless family dinners. Patricia always said she understood. She said she was proud of me. She said the sacrifice would be worth it someday. Our 2 children grew up, moved away, started their own families. Our son Derek lives in Seattle with his wife and 2 kids. Our daughter Emma settled in San Francisco. They visit when they can, but life gets busy. 3 years ago, Patricia started going to a gym. She said she wanted to get healthy, maybe lose a few pounds. I encouraged her. I thought it was great that she was taking care of herself. She hired a personal trainer, a young man named Jake. She talked about him constantly. Jake says this. Jake thinks that. I didn't think much of it. I was too busy closing deals and managing clients. The day everything changed was a Tuesday in October. The leaves were turning golden, and there was a crispness in the Portland air. I had just signed the papers, selling my company to a tech conglomerate from California. $8 million. After taxes, I would walk away with about $5.5 million. It was more money than I ever dreamed of having. I couldn't wait to tell Patricia. We could travel the world, buy that beach house she always wanted, spoil our grandchildren rotten. I left the lawyer's office around 2 in the afternoon. Patricia thought I was in meetings until 6. I wanted to surprise her. I stopped at her favorite bakery and bought a chocolate cake. I picked up a bottle of champagne. I was practically floating as I drove home. Our house is a modest craftsman-style home in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, but we raised our children there. It held 35 years of memories. I pulled into the driveway and noticed an unfamiliar car parked on the street. A red sports car, flashy and loud. I didn't think much of it. Maybe a neighbor had visitors. I walked through the front door quietly, wanting to surprise my wife. The house was silent except for a sound coming from upstairs, our bedroom. At first, I thought maybe she had the television on, but as I climbed the stairs, cake box in one hand, champagne in the other, the sounds became clearer. Moaning, laughter, the unmistakable rhythm of a bed creaking. My heart stopped. I stood frozen on the landing, unable to move, unable to breathe. The bedroom door was slightly open. I could see shadows moving on the wall. Then I heard voices. "When is the old fool selling that company?" That was Jake's voice. I recognized it from the few times I had met him at gym events Patricia dragged me to. My wife laughed. "Any day now. He's been working on it for months. Once he signs those papers, I'm filing for divorce immediately." "And you're sure you'll get half?" "Half? Honey, I'll get more than half. I've been married to that boring workaholic for 35 years. I've earned every penny. My lawyer says with my contributions to the household, I could get 60%, maybe more." I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. Contributions to the household? She hadn't worked a day since 1992. I paid for everything. The house, the cars, her clothes, her jewelry, her gym membership, her personal trainer who was now in my bed. "And then we disappear to Costa Rica?" Jake asked. "Exactly. I've already been transferring small amounts to an offshore account. He never checks the statements. He trusts me completely." She laughed again, and it was the cruelest sound I had ever heard. The idiot actually thinks I love him. Something inside me died in that moment. 35 years. 35 years of sacrifice, of working 16-hour days, of missing my children's school plays and baseball games, All for her. All for us. And she called me an idiot. I backed down the stairs silently. I set the cake and champagne on the kitchen counter. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely function. Every instinct told me to storm upstairs, to confront them, to scream and rage. But something held me back. If I confronted her now, what would I gain? She would cry, make excuses, maybe even try to manipulate me into forgiving her. Or worse, she would accelerate her plans. She would take half of everything I had worked for and run off with a man half her age. No, I needed to think. I needed a plan. I slipped out of the house as quietly as I had entered. I drove to a coffee shop downtown and sat there for 3 hours, my mind racing. The sale documents were signed, but the money wouldn't hit my accounts for another 30 days. I had time. Not much, but enough. I called my lawyer, a man named Richard who had handled my business affairs for 20 years. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. "Harold," he said finally, "I'm sorry, but legally speaking, you're in a complicated position. Oregon is an equitable distribution state. She could claim a significant portion of your assets. There has to be something I can do." He was quiet for a moment. "There might be. If you can prove she was planning to defraud you, to hide assets, that changes things. Judges don't look kindly on financial deception." That night, I slept in a hotel. I told Patricia I was stuck in San Francisco for emergency meetings. She sounded disappointed on the phone, but I knew better now. She was probably relieved. More time with her lover. The next day, I hired a private investigator, a woman named Sandra Chen, highly recommended, discreet, and thorough. I told her everything. "I need evidence," I said. "Everything. Photos, recordings, financial records, whatever it takes." Sandra nodded. "Give me 2 weeks." Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I went home and pretended everything was normal. I smiled at my wife across the dinner table. I kissed her goodnight. I played the role of the clueless, trusting husband. It took every ounce of self-control I possessed. Meanwhile, Sandra was building a case. She discovered that Patricia had been transferring money to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands for over a year. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. Nearly $200,000 of our joint savings, gone. She had also been paying for Jake's apartment, his car, his credit card bills, all from accounts I never monitored because I trusted her completely. But the most damaging discovery was about Jake himself. Sandra dug into his background and found a pattern. He wasn't just having an affair with my wife. He was a professional con artist. Over the past decade, he had targeted at least 5 other wealthy older women. He would seduce them, convince them to leave their husbands, and then disappear with their money. One woman in Arizona had lost over $3 million to him. Another in Nevada had committed suicide after he vanished. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She had fallen for a predator, and in her greed, she had become his accomplice. Armed with this information, I made my move. First, I went back to Richard and restructured everything. The sale money would go into a trust for my children and grandchildren. I created a new company, a consulting firm, and transferred my remaining assets into it. Everything was done legally, transparently, with proper documentation. I wasn't hiding anything. I was protecting what was mine from someone who intended to steal it. Then I waited. The sale closed on a Friday. $8 million hit my business account. The following Monday, Patricia filed for divorce. She came to me with tears in her eyes, a performance worthy of an Academy Award. "Harold, I'm so sorry. I just don't feel the connection anymore. We've grown apart. I think it's best if we separate." I nodded slowly, playing my part. "I understand, Patricia. These things happen. I want this to be amicable." She seemed relieved. "Of course. We can divide everything fairly. 50-50. "Absolutely," I said. "I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers." What she didn't know was that my lawyer had already prepared a counterattack. When her attorney filed the initial petition, we responded with a motion that changed everything. The discovery phase was brutal. Her lawyer demanded access to all my financial records. My lawyer complied, producing meticulous documentation of every dollar I had earned and spent over 35 years. Then we filed our own demands. We requested Patricia's personal bank statements, her credit card records, her phone records, and the records of a certain offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Her lawyer objected, but the judge overruled. When Patricia was forced to produce those documents, the truth came spilling out. $200,000 transferred out of joint accounts without my knowledge or consent. Payments to a man who wasn't her husband. Evidence of a planned fraud. But I wasn't finished. On the day of our first major hearing, I arrived at the courthouse with Sandra Chen and a thick folder of evidence. Patricia was there with Jake, who had accompanied her for moral support. They didn't see me watching them in the hallway, holding hands, whispering reassurances. Inside the courtroom, my lawyer presented our case. He showed the judge the offshore transfers. He played audio recordings Sandra had obtained of Patricia and Jake discussing their plans. He introduced evidence of Jake's history as a con artist, his pattern of targeting vulnerable women, the trail of destruction he had left across multiple states. Patricia's face went white. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Your Honor," my lawyer said, "Mrs. Mitchell didn't just commit adultery. She engaged in a systematic plan to defraud her husband of assets he spent 35 years building. She conspired with a known con artist to steal millions of dollars and flee the country." The judge looked at Patricia with undisguised contempt. "Is there anything you wish to say, Mrs. Mitchell?" Patricia stood, trembling. Harold, I'm sorry. Jake manipulated me. He told me you didn't love me, that I deserved better. I was lonely, and he took advantage of that." Jake jumped to his feet. "That's a lie. She came on to me. She planned everything. I was just—" "Mr. Harrison," the judge interrupted coldly, "you are not a party to these proceedings, but I should inform you that based on the evidence presented today, I will be referring your case to the district attorney. There appear to be grounds for multiple charges of fraud, theft, and conspiracy." Jake's face drained of color. He looked at Patricia, then at me, then bolted for the door. 2 sheriff's deputies intercepted him before he reached the exit. "Take him into custody," the judge ordered. "Contact the authorities in Arizona and Nevada as well. They may have outstanding warrants." As they handcuffed Jake and led him away, I looked at my wife, the woman I had loved for 35 years, the woman I had sacrificed everything for. She was crying, mascara running down her face, but I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a vast emptiness where my love used to be. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Based on Patricia's attempted fraud and asset concealment, the judge awarded me 80% of our marital assets. She was left with the car and some furniture. The offshore account was frozen, pending criminal investigation. Jake was eventually convicted on multiple counts of fraud and grand theft. He received 12 years in federal prison. 3 of his other victims came forward during the trial, sharing stories that made my experience seem almost mild by comparison. Patricia moved to a small apartment in a bad part of town. Our children, when they learned the truth, cut off contact with her. Derek called me the night the divorce was final. "Dad, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I had no idea Mom was capable of something like this." "Neither did I, son. Neither did I." That was 2 years ago. Today, I'm 65 years old and happier than I've been in decades. I sold the house with all its tainted memories and bought a small cabin on the Oregon coast. I can see the ocean from my bedroom window. The sound of the waves helps me sleep. I spend my days consulting for young tech startups, sharing the knowledge I accumulated over 35 years. I don't need the money, but I enjoy the work. It keeps my mind sharp. But the most meaningful thing I do is volunteer with an organization that helps victims of romance scams. I share my story with men and women who have been deceived by people they trusted. I tell them that it's not their fault, that predators like Jake are skilled manipulators who can fool anyone. Last month, I helped a 70-year-old widow in Boise who had lost her life savings to a man she met on a dating site. Together with Sandra Chen, who still does investigative work, we tracked him down and helped the authorities make an arrest. The widow got back 30% of her money. It wasn't everything, but it was something. My grandchildren visit every other weekend now. Derek's kids, Lily and Sam, love the beach. We build sand castles and fly kites and eat ice cream until our stomachs hurt. Emma is pregnant with her first child, due in spring. She asked me to be there for the birth. I don't think about Patricia much anymore. I heard through mutual friends that she tried to reconnect with Jake, writing him letters in prison. Apparently, he never wrote back. She's alone now, living off a meager Social Security check, exactly the fate she had planned for me. Some people might call that karma. I call it justice. Looking back, I realized that the day I heard those voices in my bedroom wasn't the worst day of my life. It was the beginning of my real life. For 35 years, I had been blind, working myself to exhaustion for a woman who saw me as nothing more than a walking wallet. Now I see clearly. I know who my real family is. I know what matters. Money has power, yes, but its true value lies in what it can protect and who it can help. I protected my children's inheritance from a thief. I helped other victims find justice. And I found something I had lost along the way, my self-respect. The ocean is calm tonight. The stars are bright. Tomorrow, my grandchildren are coming, and we're going to plant a garden. Tomatoes, peppers, and sunflowers. Things that grow toward the light. My name is Harold Mitchell. I'm 65 years old, and this is not the story of how I was betrayed. This is the story of how I reclaimed my life. Did you enjoy the story? What city are you listening from? Leave a comment below. And if this story touched you, consider supporting the channel so I can keep bringing you more stories like this one. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and remember, it's never too late to start over.